Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we are diving into something I know a lot of you have been asking about.
Yeah.
It's the way whiteness has become like the beauty standard,
Right.
especially in East Asia.
Hmm.
We've got a really fascinating research paper to help us unpack all this. It's called Whiteness as a Beauty Standard.
Okay.
And it specifically focuses on the experiences of East Asian women.
Interesting.
What's really cool about this paper, though, is that the author doesn't just like present the academic research.
Right.
She also brings in her own personal experiences,
Oh, wow.
which I think makes it so much more powerful.
Yeah, that's a really great approach because it, helps us connect to these ideas
Totally.
on a more like human level.
Yeah, for sure. And it makes me think about how
Yeah.
you mentioned that a friend of yours actually sees things like double eyelid surgery as an investment.
Yeah,
It's like so ingrained in the culture
it really is.
that it's not even questioned. It's
Mhm.
just like an investment you make in yourself.
Mhm.
And I think that really highlights this whole pressure to conform
Yeah.
to a certain look, even if it means going through pretty intense procedures.
Right.
Like the paper talks about all sorts of things, double eyelid surgery, nose jobs,
Wow.
even using colored contacts to make your eyes look more Western,
Oh, wow.
And it's not even just about like looking different.
Right.
It's about this feeling of like not being good enough
Yeah,
as you are.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not even limited to just surgical procedures, right?
Uh,
Like the paper also talks about skin whitening treatments,
oh, yeah.
which are super popular,
Yeah.
like IV drips with vitamin C.
Oh, God.
It's crazy. It
Hmm.
really shows you how much effort and money people are willing to spend
Wow.
to achieve this ideal.
It's a lot.
It really makes you wonder, like, how do we even get to this point where
Right.
whiteness became like the standard of beauty?
Exactly. Like, especially in a place like East Asia.
I know.
How did that even happen?
It's a really good question.
Yeah. So the paper actually dives into this really fascinating history. Oh.
And it talks about the role of photography technology, which I never would have considered.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things you don't really think about.
Yeah.
But it's easy to overlook how something like photography, which seems so neutral on the surface,
Right.
could actually be part of the problem.
Right.
So the author uses this concept called coded exposure selection
Okay.
from Ruha Benjamin's work
Okay.
to kind of explain how this happened.
So what is that?
Basically, the way cameras were developed way back in the day, they were actually calibrated
Uh-huh.
to capture lighter skin tones better.
Oh, wow. So it's like the photos would actually make white people look better
Exactly.
just because of the technology.
Exactly. Think about it. Like, if all the images that were circulating
Mm-hmm.
and seen as like aesthetically pleasing were mainly of white people,
Right.
wouldn't that just reinforce the idea
Yeah.
that whiteness is beautiful?
Wow. That's kind of disturbing.
It's like this built-in bias
Yeah.
that gets replicated and amplified
Right.
over time. So the technology itself played a role in shaping those early beauty standards.
It really did.
I mean, obviously, other cultures had their own beauty standards before photography.
Oh, of course, different cultures have always had their own ideas about beauty.
Right.
But the paper makes this really interesting point about how photography
Uh-huh.
and then mass media
Okay.
really helped to spread this westernized standard
Okay.
globally.
Got it.
And they actually used Polaroid cameras in South Africa as an example.
Oh, interesting.
But in that case, they were used for something totally different,
What was that?
to document and control Black citizens.
Oh, wow. So, like, the same technology
Yeah.
used in totally opposite ways,
Yeah.
depending on the context.
It all depends on the context.
Yeah. It really highlights how technology reflects, like, the values
Absolutely.
and power dynamics
Yes.
of the people who create it and use it.
For sure.
Which kind of leads us to how this Western beauty standard spread
Yeah.
beyond the West, right? Like, how did it become so global? How did it end up influencing places like East Asia so strongly?
Well, I'm guessing globalization has something to do with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, that has to be a part of it.
Definitely. The paper talks about Doreen Massey's work, A Global Sense of Place,
Okay.
to explain this.
Okay.
And it's like globalization has connected the world in so many ways,
Right.
but it's also created this uneven playing field
Right.
where Western culture often dominates.
So it's not just about countries being connected.
Right.
It's about one culture's ideas.
Exactly.
Like its beauty standards
Yes.
becoming more influential.
Yes.
Or even superior in people's minds.
Exactly. And that goes back to that concept of ethnocentricity,
Yeah.
where, one culture believes it's better than others,
Right.
and Western culture often gets placed at the top
Yeah.
that hierarchy.
Right.
And that influences everything,
Totally.
from the products people want to the features they desire.
Yeah, and it's not always easy to access those Western products or achieve those features. Like, there's a whole market of beauty products and procedures that are marketed globally,
Yes.
but might be out of reach for a lot of people.
Absolutely. It creates this sense of longing
Right.
and striving for something that's often unattainable,
Yeah.
which further reinforces the idea that whiteness is the ideal.
And, the paper uses the example of Korea, where plastic surgery is so prevalent
Yeah.
that there's a joke about everyone ending up looking the same afterwards.
It's true.
Which is kind of ironic when
Yeah.
you think about it.
Totally. It highlights how this pressure to conform can actually erase individuality
Right.
and cultural diversity.
It's like everyone's chasing the same ideal.
Exactly.
But what I found really interesting is how the author brings in her own personal experiences
Yeah.
to explore this issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she's going on this journey of self-discovery
Yeah.
alongside the research.
That's what makes this paper so compelling.
Yeah.
She starts off thinking her desire for Western features is just like a personal thing, something she picked up from magazines and movies.
Uh-huh.
But through her research, she realizes it's actually a systemic issue
Wow.
rooted in history and technology.
Hold on. We'll be right back to unpack that personal journey after a short break.
It's amazing how she connects her personal experiences to this bigger picture
Yeah.
of how beauty standards have been shaped.
It's a good reminder that, we're not just individuals
Right.
making choices in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Our perceptions, our desires, even our insecurities,
Right.
they're all influenced by things that are much bigger than us.
Totally. It makes me think about all those subtle messages
Yes.
that we've absorbed throughout our lives.
Absolutely.
From media, from our families, from society in general.
For sure.
And it's so easy to just internalize those messages.
Right.
Without even realizing where they came from.
Exactly. And that's where the author's journey
Yeah.
is so relatable.
Totally.
She starts off feeling like she's the only one. Right.
Struggling with these issues. But then she realizes so many other people,
Right.
especially East Asian women,
Yeah.
are dealing with the same pressures
Yeah.
and insecurities.
Do you think that's why, the personal reflection part of the paper is so powerful?
I think so.
Because it makes this whole issue feel less abstract
Yeah.
and more personal.
It gives a voice to the lived experiences
Right.
of people who are directly affected
Exactly.
by this beauty standard.
Yeah.
And it challenges us to think about how these larger forces, like history, technology, globalization,
Right.
actually play out in individual lives.
Okay, so we've talked about how this beauty standard developed and spread,
Mm-hmm.
but what does it all mean for us?
Right.
Moving forward?
Yeah.
What are the takeaways
Good question.
we can actually apply to our own lives?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is
Yeah.
the importance of being critical thinkers. We can't just accept everything we see or hear at face value.
Yeah.
We need to question the messages
Right.
we're receiving
Yeah.
about beauty,
Uh-huh.
whether it's coming from the media,
Right.
from advertising,
Huh.
or even from our own
Right.
internalized beliefs.
It's like we need to become more aware of the forces that are shaping our perceptions.
Yes.
And then make conscious choices about how we want to engage with them.
Exactly.
And another takeaway, I think, is recognizing
Yeah.
that these issues are all interconnected.
Absolutely.
Beauty standards don't exist in isolation,
They don't.
right? They're tied to history, to
Yes.
technology, to culture, to power dynamics.
Absolutely.
So it's not enough to just focus on individual choices
Right.
or preferences.
It's bigger than that.
Right. We need to understand the broader context in which those choices are being made.
Exactly.
And that understanding can lead to more meaningful conversations and actions.
Absolutely.
For example, we can start by challenging the dominance of Western beauty standards
Yes.
in media and advertising.
Absolutely. I've been trying to be more conscious
Yeah,
of the images I consume.
me too.
Are they showing a diverse range of beauty,
Right.
or are they just perpetuating the same old narrow standard?
Totally.
Mhm.
And we can also support brands and creators who are promoting
For sure.
more inclusive and diverse representations of beauty.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to educate ourselves and others
Yes.
about the history of these things,
Right.
how racialized technologies have shaped our world.
It all goes back.
It all connects.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about unpacking those hidden biases.
Yes.
And understanding how they continue to influence us today.
Absolutely.
So it's like individual action combined with
Right.
systemic change.
It has to be both.
Yeah. And on a more personal level, I think self-reflection is crucial.
Oh, for sure.
Like, we can all examine our own beliefs
Yes.
about beauty
Absolutely.
and ask ourselves, like, where did those beliefs even come from?
Right.
Are they serving us?
Mm-hmm.
Are they aligned with our values?
Those are the questions.
It's an ongoing process,
It
a
is.
journey of unlearning and relearning.
But it's a journey worth taking.
Totally. Because it can lead to greater self-acceptance
Yes.
and hopefully a more just and equitable world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I love that this whole deep dive has been about challenging assumptions and broadening our perspectives.
Absolutely.
But I have to admit, it's kind of depressing to realize
Yeah.
how deeply ingrained this whiteness as a beauty standard is.
I hear that.
Is there anything hopeful or
Yeah.
positive we
Yeah.
can take away from all this?
I think there's definitely hope
Okay.
amidst the challenges.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing a growing awareness
Yeah.
of these issues
Mm-hmm.
thanks to the work of scholars, activists,
Right.
and everyday people who are speaking out.
So the fact that we're even having this conversation is
Yes.
actually a sign of progress.
It is a sign of progress.
Okay.
With awareness
Yeah.
comes the potential for action.
Okay.
We're seeing more diverse representation in media.
Yeah.
Brands are starting to embrace inclusivity and body positivity.
Uh-huh.
And there's a growing movement to decolonize beauty standards.
It's like the tide is slowly turning,
It is turning.
but it's definitely turning.
It is.
I agree. And while there's still a long way to go,
Yes.
these shifts give me hope that we can create a future
Mm-hmm.
where beauty is defined by individuality
Yes.
and authenticity
For sure.
rather than these narrow and oppressive norms.
Absolutely.
I love that vision.
Me too.
It's so important to hold on to that.
Yeah.
It reminds us that change is possible
It
if
is.
we keep challenging the status quo
Mm-hmm.
and working towards a more just and beautiful world.
That's what it's all about.
And that kind of leads us to a final thought-provoking question for our listeners.
Let's hear it.
We've been exploring how whiteness became the dominant beauty standard,
Right.
but imagine if we could go back in time
Okay.
and rewrite history.
Okay, I'm listening.
What if photography technology
Mhm.
had developed differently,
Okay.
capturing all skin tones equally?
Interesting.
Could beauty standards around the world look different today?
Wow. That is a mind-blowing question.
Right.
It really makes you think about how technology shapes
Yeah.
our perceptions of the world.
Imagine a world where from the very beginning,
Yeah.
the images we saw
Mm-hmm.
reflected the true diversity of human beauty.
It's a beautiful thought.
What if, instead of perpetuating a single ideal,
Mm-hmm.
cameras captured all skin tones beautifully,
Yeah.
would we even be having this conversation today?
That's the question, isn't it?
It's incredible to think about
I know.
how different our world might be
Yeah.
if those early technological choices
Right.
had been made
Mm.
with inclusivity in mind.
It really is. It's a reminder that technology isn't neutral.
Right.
It reflects the values
Uh-huh.
and biases
Yeah.
of the people who create it.
So as we continue to explore this complex issue,
Mm-hmm.
we should keep asking ourselves,
Yeah.
what if beauty standards had been shaped by a different reality?
Interesting.
What kind of world could we create
Right.
if we truly embrace the beauty of our differences?
That's a powerful question to ponder.
It's like a challenge to rethink like the very foundation
Mhm.
of how we see beauty.
It is. And that rethinking
Yeah.
starts with awareness,
Okay.
with questioning those norms
Right.
that we've come to accept as truth.
So this deep dive isn't just about understanding the problem.
No.
It's about like empowering ourselves
Yes.
to actually be part of the solution.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I find so inspiring about this topic.
Yeah.
It's not just an academic exercise.
Right.
It's a call to action.
I love that.
It reminds us that we have the power to shape the world we want to live in.
And that world ideally
Yes.
is one where beauty is celebrated
Mhm.
in all its amazing forms,
Absolutely.
where being unique is valued,
Yes.
and where everyone feels seen for who they truly are.
Well said. That's a beautiful vision
Yeah.
to work towards.
And it's a vision that's within our reach
it is.
if we keep learning,
Yes.
growing,
Right.
and challenging the status quo.
We can do it.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has been.
Thank you so much for guiding us through this deep dive
My pleasure.
into such a complex topic.
Of course. And remember, this conversation doesn't end here.
Right.
Keep exploring. Keep questioning.
Yeah.
Keep challenging those norms that try to limit
I love that.
our understanding of beauty.
And to you listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.
We hope this episode has sparked your curiosity
For sure.
and inspired you to keep exploring this important issue.
Remember, beauty isn't a destination. It's a journey.
I like that.
Journey of self-discovery, of embracing our differences,
Yeah.
of celebrating all the richness of human experience.
So go out there and be the change you want to see.
Yes.
Embrace your own unique beauty
Absolutely.
and challenge the norms that tell you otherwise.
Love it. Never stop questioning.
Hmm.
Never stop learning.
Keep going.
Never stop fighting for a more just and beautiful world.
Couldn't agree more.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive.
Great episode.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged,
Stay curious.
and keep diving deeper